Bronny James is living what many would call a dream life. He's a rising basketball star, born with natural talent, incredible work ethic, and the most recognizable last name in the basketball world. But let's get real. Bronny's dream comes with a heavy price tag. The shadow of LeBron James, the king himself, isn't just a legacy Bronny can lean on. It's a weight that could crush his potential. Nobody wants to say it out loud, but here's the truth. LeBron might be unintentionally sabotaging his own son's career. Let's start with the obvious. Bronny James isn't just competing with high school athletes or future NBA prospects. He's competing with one of the greatest basketball players in history, his own father. From the day Bronny first picked up a basketball, the world wasn't just watching, they were comparing. Every jump shot, every crossover, every decision Bronny makes on the court is measured against LeBron's legendary resume. And let's be honest, that's not fair. Imagine you're trying to become a world-class chef, and your dad is Gordon Ramsay. Every dish you serve isn't just judged on its taste, it's compared to your dad's Michelin-starred menu. That's the reality Bronny lives with every time he steps onto the court. And it's not just the fans. Scouts, analysts, and even teammates are viewing Bronny not as a player in his own right, but as LeBron's son. Now you might say, well, isn't that a good thing? Doesn't being LeBron's son open doors? Sure, it does. But here's the catch. Those same doors are slammed shut on Bronny the moment he doesn't live up to the sky-high expectations. Think about it. The second Bronny had an off game, or worse if he struggled during a critical season, the critics didn't hold back. They'll say things like, he's not as good as his dad, or he's overhyped. And whose fault is that? It's not Bronny's, it's the unrealistic expectations that come with LeBron being his father. Let's dig deeper into why this is happening. First, LeBron has publicly declared his desire to play with his son in the NBA. On the surface, that sounds wholesome. A father and son playing together on the biggest basketball stage? It's a feel-good Hollywood script waiting to happen. But here's the problem. LeBron's declaration shifted the narrative around Bronny's career. Instead of asking, how can Bronny become a great player? The focus was on, when will Bronny make it to the NBA to play with his dad? This isn't just speculation. It's a fact that LeBron's influence is shaping how teams view Bronny. General managers and scouts aren't just evaluating Bronny for his skills. They're majorly factoring in what it would mean to draft him and potentially land LeBron for a season. And while that might sound like a bonus, it's not necessarily a good thing for Bronny. Think about it. If a team drafts Bronny for the wrong reasons, they might overlook his development. Instead of investing in him as a player, they'll see him as a ticket to LeBron, a short-term marketing move instead of a long-term commitment to his career. But it gets worse. By tying his future so closely to Bronny's, LeBron is putting extra pressure on his son. Imagine being a 20-year-old lad and knowing that your dad's legacy is riding on your shoulders. That's not just tough, it's suffocating. Bronny isn't being given the space to grow, make mistakes, and find his own identity as a player. Instead, every step he takes is under a microscope. And who's holding the magnifying glass? LeBron, whether he realizes it or not. Let's not forget the media. LeBron has spent decades mastering the art of controlling the narrative. From the decision to his social media posts, LeBron knows how to keep himself in the headlines. But when it comes to Bronny, that media attention isn't doing him any favors. Every time LeBron tweets about Bronny or shows up at one of his games, it amplifies the spotlight. And while it's natural for a dad to support his son, this level of attention can be overwhelming for a young athlete. Case in point, the moment Bronny announced his commitment to USC, the sports world went into overdrive. Headlines screamed about how this was a stepping stone to the NBA, how it would bring LeBron closer to his dream of playing with his son. But how many of those articles actually focused on Bronny's fit with USC, his potential as a college player, or his goals? Not many. Instead, the focus was once again on LeBron's narrative, not Bronny's. And this isn't just speculation. There are countless examples of second-generation athletes who've struggled under the weight of their parents' legacies. Michael Jordan's sons, Jeffrey and Marcus, come to mind. They were talented players in their own right, but they were never allowed to simply be Jeffrey or Marcus. They were always Michael Jordan's sons, and the constant comparisons took a toll. The same thing could happen to Bronny. If he doesn't meet the impossibly high expectations set by his dad's legacy, the narrative could shift from rising star to disappointment in a heartbeat. And that's not fair. Bronny deserves the chance to carve out his own path, to make his own mistakes, and to achieve his own success without being overshadowed by LeBron. Now, let's address the elephant in the room, LeBron's intentions. Nobody's saying LeBron is doing this on purpose. In fact, it's clear he loves his son and wants the best for him. But sometimes, even the best intentions can backfire. By constantly inserting himself into Bronny's story, LeBron is unwillingly making things harder for him. So, what's the solution? For starters, LeBron needs to take a step back. He needs to let Bronny navigate his own journey, even if that means making mistakes or taking a less glamorous route to the NBA. And the rest of us, the fans, the media, the scouts, need to stop viewing Bronny as LeBron's son and start seeing him as his own player. Bronny James has the talent, the drive, and the potential to be great. He just lacks some consistency and court experience for an NBA player. But if we keep comparing him to LeBron, if we keep tying his future to his dad's legacy, we're setting him up to fail. And that's not just a disservice to Bronny, it's a disservice to basketball. But one thing is clear, if things don't change, Bronny's career might never reach the heights it deserves. And the saddest part? Nobody seems to be talking about it. LeBron's involvement in Bronny's career doesn't just put pressure on the young athlete, it creates an entirely different set of challenges that most players his age never have to face. One of the biggest issues? The constant spotlight. Being under that kind of attention sounds glamorous, but in reality, it's like walking on a tightrope with no safety net. One wrong step, and the world is ready to tear you down. For Bronny, this all starts with the expectations set by his dad's dominance. LeBron isn't just a great player, he's an empire. From Nike deals to multiple championships, to even producing movies, LeBron has created an almost superhuman image. The problem is, that image doesn't leave much room for Bronny to be a regular teenager. Instead, he's expected to carry himself like a fully polished star before he's even stepped onto an NBA court. And let's not forget how relentless social media can be. Every moment of Bronny's life is scrutinized online. From his performances on the court to what he posts on Instagram, nothing is off limits. That's not normal for a high school or college player. Sure, being in the public eye can build your brand, but for Bronny, it's a double-edged sword. Any mistake he makes, whether it's a bad game or even something trivial like missing a free throw, is magnified tenfold, just like what happened in the Summer League. Think about how brutal social media was to players like Ben Simmons or Russell Westbrook. Now imagine that same level of criticism being directed at a 20-year-old. The memes, the hashtags, the endless trolling. How is anyone supposed to focus on becoming a better player when they're constantly battling the noise? And unfortunately, a lot of this noise exists because of who his dad is. But there's another layer to this. Bronny's development as a player is being shaped by factors that have nothing to do with basketball. LeBron's influence, whether intentional or not, is steering the narrative away from Bronny's growth and toward the spectacle of the James family. That's not how a young athlete should be nurtured. The best players in the world didn't get to the top because of outside distractions. They got there by grinding, learning, and having the space to grow. Take Steph Curry, for example. He didn't step onto the court with immediate expectations of greatness, despite his dad, Del Curry, being an NBA sharpshooter. Steph had time to develop his skills, prove himself at Davidson College, and earn his spot in the league. He wasn't constantly compared to his dad's legacy because Del wasn't the face of the NBA. Bronny doesn't have that luxury. The stakes are even higher when you consider the financial aspect of the basketball industry. The world isn't just watching Bronny for his basketball skills, they're watching to see if he can carry on the billion-dollar James brand. Bronny isn't just a player, he's seen as an investment. Every endorsement deal, every sneaker collaboration, every social media campaign is tied to his potential to maintain the James empire. And that's a ridiculous amount of pressure to put on someone who hasn't even played a single college game yet. It's also worth noting how this dynamic could impact Bronny's relationships with his peers. Basketball is a team sport, and chemistry is everything. But when you're Bronny James, your teammates aren't just playing alongside you, they're playing alongside LeBron's son. That can create an awkward dynamic, especially when other players might feel overshadowed or like they're just supporting actors in Bronny's story. Let's not pretend that jealousy or resentment doesn't exist. Imagine being one of Bronny's teammates, working just as hard, and yet all the attention is focused on him because of his last name. That kind of environment can be toxic, and it could affect how Bronny fits into team dynamics as he moves up the ranks. There's also the question of coaching. How do you coach a player like Bronny when his dad is LeBron James? Any coach worth their salt wants to push their players to be better, but when your star player's dad is one of the greatest minds in basketball, it's hard not to feel like you're walking on eggshells. Not to mention the allegations LeBron had in the past of being a coach killer of his team. Do you challenge Bronny like you would any other player? Or do you hold back, fearing that any criticism might not sit well with LeBron? This isn't just speculation, it's a real issue that has been seen with other second-generation athletes. And here's where things get tricky. While Bronny has shown tremendous promise in practice, his game is still developing. He's not LeBron. He doesn't have his dad's size, physicality, or dominant style of play. But that's not a bad thing. It just means Bronny has a different skill set. He's more of a well-rounded player who relies on finesse, basketball IQ, and teamwork. The problem is, because of the constant comparisons to LeBron, people expect him to have the same superhuman abilities. That expectation could actually hurt Bronny's development. Instead of focusing on what makes him unique as a player, he might feel pressure to emulate his dad's game. And if that happens, it could stifle his potential. Basketball isn't about becoming a carbon copy of someone else. It's about finding your own style and excelling at it. There's also the risk of burnout. Let's not forget, Bronny has been in the spotlight since he was a kid. He spent years juggling school, basketball, and media attention. That kind of grind takes a toll, both mentally and physically. And while LeBron has been a master at managing his body and career longevity, that doesn't mean Bronny will be able to do the same. The pressure to constantly live up to his dad's standards could wear him down before he even reaches his prime. And then there's the NBA draft. This is where things get really complicated. Teams were already eyeing Bronny, not just for his potential, but for the possibility of landing LeBron as part of the package. That created the dangerous scenario where Bronny ended up on a team that isn't the best fit for his growth as a player. Instead of being drafted by a team that values his skills and wants to develop him, he was chosen for marketing reasons. His draft was even marked as an act of nepotism by many analysts. This isn't just bad for Bronny, it was bad for the Lakers. He was placed in the wrong system that derailed his career before it even began. And the saddest part? People won't blame the team or the system. They'll blame Bronny. So far, Bronny has handled the pressure with incredible maturity. He couldn't meet people's expectations on the court, but his work ethic is undeniable. No matter how talented or hardworking he is, the challenges created by LeBron's influence are impossible to ignore. Bronny deserves the chance to succeed or fail on his own terms, but if things keep going the way they are, he might never get that chance. And while LeBron's intentions might be good, his involvement is creating an environment where Bronny's career could be defined by expectations he never asked for. And let's be real, the basketball world isn't doing Bronny any favors either. Everyone loves a good story, and the idea of a father-son duo in the NBA is a narrative too tempting to resist. But if we keep focusing on that story, we're missing the bigger picture. Bronny isn't just LeBron's son. He's his own player, with his own journey. And until we start recognizing that, we're not just hurting Bronny, we're hurting the game itself. But this isn't the end of the story. The challenges Bronny faces are about more than just pressure. They're about the very structure of the basketball world. From how young players are scouted to how they're marketed, there's a system in place that could either make or break Bronny's career. And if nobody steps in to fix it, the consequences could be devastating. Now, let's bring the narrative to the present, because as of now, Bronny James is 20 years old and navigating an extremely tricky point in his basketball career. The hype, the expectations, and the constant spotlight have all led him to this critical juncture. While Bronny achieved what few young players ever do, making it to the NBA, it hasn't been the fairy tale rise many expected. His journey has taken a surprising turn, and LeBron's role in shaping that journey has never been more crucial or controversial. Bronny's NBA debut was supposed to be a crowning moment, a result of years of hard work and relentless focus. And to his credit, when he stepped onto the court, he showed flashes of why scouts and fans believed he had the potential to play at the highest level. But his stint in the NBA didn't last long. After struggling to find consistent minutes and adjust to the demands of the league, Bronny was sent to the G League, a move that was both a wake-up call and a reflection of the challenges he faces as LeBron's son. The G League is not a demotion in itself. Many players use it as a stepping stone to refine their skills and make a strong return to the NBA. But for Bronny, the optics of this move are complicated. For a player with the James name attached to him, being in the G League isn't seen as part of the journey. It's seen as a failure by some critics. That perception adds an entirely new layer of pressure. And here's where LeBron's involvement comes into play. LeBron has been vocal about wanting to play alongside Bronny in the NBA. It's been one of his most publicly shared dreams. During interviews and press conferences, he's mentioned how meaningful it would be to share the court with his son in a professional game. And while that vision is heartwarming on paper, in reality, it has created a situation where Bronny's career feels like it's tethered to his father's ambitions rather than his own. Let's consider the facts. The timing of Bronny's entry into the league has lined up almost perfectly with the tail end of LeBron's career. LeBron has made it no secret that he's willing to do whatever it takes to make this father-son duo happen, even if that means switching teams or taking a pay cut to sign with whichever organization drafts or signs Bronny. But this raises a critical question. Is this dream helping Bronny? Or is it creating an environment where he's seen as a bargaining chip for teams that want to secure LeBron for one last season? The reality of Bronny's current situation suggests it might be the latter. When Bronny was sent to the G League, it wasn't just about his development. It also highlighted how teams viewed his presence in the NBA. Was he drafted purely on merit? Or did the LeBron factor play a role? That shadow looms over every move Bronny makes, and LeBron's influence doesn't stop there. In today's NBA, LeBron remains one of the most powerful voices. His ability to sway team decisions, recruit players, and even impact coaching strategies is well documented. But that power, when applied to his son's career, might not be the advantage it appears to be. Teams that sign Bronny are not just getting a young player. They're also taking on the weight of LeBron's expectations and the inevitable media circus that follows. This creates a tricky dynamic for Bronny. On one hand, he's in the G League working to prove himself and earn his spot back in the NBA. On the other, his dad's looming presence means every step he takes is seen through the lens of LeBron's larger-than-life persona. How can Bronny carve out his own identity as a player when everything he does is tied to his father's legacy? And then, there's the issue of branding. Off the court, Bronny is already a marketing sensation. Between social media, endorsements, and the built-in fandom he inherited from his dad, he's more famous than most G League players will ever be. But that fame doesn't translate to the court. In fact, it can be a distraction. While other players in the G League are focused solely on improving their game, Bronny has to juggle the added responsibilities of being a public figure. LeBron, of course, has nothing but good intentions. As a father, he wants to support Bronny in every way possible. But as a player, his involvement may unintentionally be doing more harm than good. By constantly talking about the dream of playing together and making public statements about his son's career, LeBron has amplified the pressure on Bronny tenfold. And when you combine that with the already brutal scrutiny that comes with being a professional athlete, it's a recipe for burnout. The G League, in some ways, is the best place for Bronny right now. It gives him the opportunity to work on his game away from the relentless spotlight of the NBA. But even in this environment, LeBron's presence looms large. Every time Bronny plays, there's an unspoken expectation that he's supposed to dominate, to prove that he belongs in the NBA, not just as a player, but as LeBron's son. And let's not overlook the physical toll of professional basketball. Bronny has already faced significant challenges, including a cardiac arrest scare during a practice session at USC before entering the draft. While he's recovered and cleared to play, incidents like this serve as a reminder that Bronny's path is far from easy. The physical demands of basketball are immense, and for Bronny, those demands are compounded by the mental and emotional pressure he faces every single day. Meanwhile, LeBron is still dominating the NBA in his late 30s, proving that age is just a number. But as he continues to chase championships and break records, his dream of playing with Bronny may come at a cost. The question is whether that cost is worth it. For Bronny, for LeBron, and for the teams involved. The current reality is clear. Bronny is at a crossroads in his career. He has the talent, the work ethic, and the potential to succeed. But the challenges he faces, both on and off the court, are unlike anything most players have to deal with. LeBron's influence has been a blessing in some ways, opening doors and providing opportunities that most young athletes can only dream of. But it's also created obstacles that make Bronny's journey uniquely difficult. As the basketball world watches Bronny's next steps, one thing is certain: his story is far from over. Whether he makes it back to the NBA, builds a legacy of his own, or finds a different path, his future will always be shaped by the decisions made today. And right now, those decisions are more complex than ever, with LeBron's presence looming large over every move. But there's still one part of the story left to uncover. What does the future hold for Bronny and LeBron? And can Bronny ever truly step out of his father's shadow? Bronny James has officially stepped into the NBA as a rookie in the 2024-25 season, achieving what seemed like an inevitable milestone. On opening night, he shared the court with his father, LeBron James, marking a historic moment in basketball. However, Bronny's journey since has been far from smooth. Selected late in the second round, his role with the Lakers has been minimal, averaging just 2.6 minutes per game across 7 appearances. His stats highlight the struggles of adjusting to the league: 0.6 points per game on a 12.5% shooting percentage with no success from beyond the arc, 0-4-4, but a perfect 2-4-2 from the free throw line. These numbers reflect a player still finding his footing on the grand stage. Although the moments where Bronny and LeBron shared the floor were brief, they were symbolic. LeBron, a player still dominating the league in his late 30s, is undoubtedly one of Bronny's strongest advocates. However, this relationship has sparked debates over whether Bronny's opportunities in the NBA are truly his own or heavily influenced by his father's iconic legacy. Many fans and analysts argue that while LeBron's influence opened the door, it is already casting a shadow that is difficult for Bronny to escape. The reality is, Bronny has also spent time in the G League with the South Bay Lakers, a decision that reflects both his development needs and the Lakers' depth chart constraints. The move to the G League is not uncommon for young players looking to refine their skills, but in Bronny's case, it amplifies the scrutiny. Each game is dissected and every misstep is magnified, fueled by the weight of being LeBron's son. While the G League experience could offer Bronny much-needed game time and confidence, it also distances him from the NBA spotlight he seems destined to inherit. This situation raises critical questions. Has LeBron's dream of playing alongside his son in the NBA unintentionally hindered Bronny's ability to carve out an independent identity? As the elder James continues to defy Father Time, his focus on extending his career may indirectly set expectations for Bronny that are nearly impossible to meet. Even with LeBron's guidance and mentorship, the constant comparisons and expectations make Bronny's situation unique and incredibly challenging. It's important to highlight that Bronny's current position is not a failure, but part of a longer journey. Many great players, including LeBron himself, faced immense challenges early in their careers. The difference lies in the public pressure and narrative surrounding Bronny. If he succeeds, it will be seen as fulfilling his father's dream. If he struggles, it risks being framed as a missed opportunity or a failed experiment. In the grander scheme, this story underscores how the NBA, like any professional league, is as much about narratives as it is about stats. Bronny's presence in the league ensures that he remains part of the story, but the script is still being written. Will Bronny be remembered as LeBron's shadow? Or will he rise as his own star? That answer depends on how Bronny and his camp navigate the next steps of his career. For now, Bronny James is a young player with potential and immense pressure to navigate, while LeBron continues to stand by his side. Whether this dynamic is an asset or a hindrance will ultimately determine how history remembers both their legacies.